I'm currently working on building this custom Les Paul. It has a mahogany back and a flamed maple top. I've progressed enough on this body that it's now time to start building the neck. I plan to make a laminated neck made of mahogany, flame maple, and wenge. And in this video, I'll show you the process I go through to make a neck blank. I've already cut this mahogany into two pieces, and I'm going to use the quarter sawn faces to face the fretboard. And I will also take one and rotate it this way. Then the centerpiece will be this flamed maple, and I'll have the wenge runners about 1/4 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch on each side of the maple. The first step is to trim all these to size. This is my neck template, which is about 27 inches long. So I'll be cutting these to length to 28 inches, which gives me about 1/2 an inch on each side. And as you can see, the maple is a bit tall, so I'll trim that to size. So I'm also making sure that I avoid these holes in the wood. So I lightly traced the neck outline, making sure that I'm not touching these knots or holes. So now that I've cut them to length, to about 28 inches, I'm going to bring their widths to the same for all of them. And in my case, based on my template, it's going to be 2 3/8 of an inch. As I was getting ready to make the cut, I noticed that the wenge has a tiny bit of play. It's not completely flat. So I'm going to run it through the planer. Now, another issue I noticed with this board is that both faces are not flat. And when I run this on the fence of the table saw, I need a flat surface. So I'm going to use this jig to run it in the table saw to get a clean edge. I have a full video on this jig, and I'll put the link to that video in the description of this video. So now I have all my pieces to the correct dimensions. Now I'm going to cut strips off of this wenge. So I've drawn two lines 1/4 of an inch away from each edge, and I'm going to rip it on the bandsaw here. You can also do this on the table saw, but in my case I don't trust my blade. I don't think it's sharp enough and I think it's going to have a hard time. So I prefer to do it on the bandsaw and then I'll plane it flat on my planer. And now this is ready to be glued and clamped together. As a last second decision, I decided to add this mahogany veneer in the laminate. I'm going to add it between, on each side of the maple. It's paper thin, although it won't be very visible in the final product. I think it will just add a tiny bit of detail. So I'm going to go ahead and cut pieces to insert them in the blank, and then I'm going to glue it together. The jig is ready. I've added some wax paper underneath and wax paper on these blocks to catch the glue drips. My neck laminate is ready and in proper order. So now I will apply glue to each face and place it in the jig and then clamp it to let it dry. So the laminated pieces are in, clamps are tightened. Now I'll leave this to dry overnight. I put some wax paper here because I noticed there was some glue on the mahogany and I don't want it to glue mahogany to the this caul. I also placed some clamps to make sure that the edges were all aligned. I removed those now. So I can now remove this from the jig and start removing these glue squeeze out Like I said, I'll leave this to dry overnight, and we'll come back tomorrow to undo the clamps and take a look at the blank. So the glue has had time to dry, and now it's time to take off the clamps. To finish it up, I'm going to pass it through the planer a few times. This neck blank will be done. From this point forward, there are a few options. One is to cut a strip 3/4 of an inch thick, and then you can use that as, for example, for a fender style neck. You can also cut a 3/4 inch strip and take that piece, make a scarf joint cut, and make a Gibson style scarf joint neck. However, the way I'm going to use this neck blank is, here's my template, and this is the way I'm going to carve the neck from this blank. I'm going to cut a 13-degree angle, and this part will disappear. Then the fretboard will sit on top here, and also all that will be carved away, and that will be the neck, the profile of the neck. This is the offcut from the maple, and I'm going to use that to bind the fretboard all around it. And that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel.